The ML Sports Platter is back with you, brought to you by Stumble and Monkey Brewing Company. I am honored and delighted to bring onto the program a three-time Grammy-winning American saxophonist, part of the Dave Matthews Band, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. He has so many other things going on with his properties as well. We're going to get into that, of course, a composer, an educator, a record label owner. Jeff Coffin, did I cover it all, my man? It's so great to have you aboard.
I think so, man. Thank you very much for having me.
When did you fall in love with music? Do you remember?
I was pretty young. I remember listening to AM radio a lot in the car when we would be traveling.
Yeah.
And pretty much everything that I listened to, I was into. So I think it was a pretty early love. And then I kind of figured out around sixth grade that this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know how much work it was going to be, but it was kind of something that kind of gently, hit me in the back of the head and said, here I am. And so it's been kind of my life's pursuit ever since.
So through your years, obviously, funk and jazz and pop and rock. And I mean, you've had all the styles, through your time, through a bunch of different groups. Alto sax, bari sax, the flute, I mean, all the woodwind instruments. Do you have a favorite of the instruments? I know it's like trying to pick a favorite child here, but is there a favorite style, favorite instrument when you think back to all of it, where maybe when you grab it off the whole, you get a little bit more jazzed up, or is it all equal?
I think for me, probably the tenor and the soprano sax are really it for me, as far as my favorite voices, because I think they extend through each other because they're the same transposition, if you will. So the soprano is actually half the size of the tenor. So once you get up into the upper register of the tenor, that's where the soprano sound starts. And so there's a similarity in timbre, and there's a vocal nature to both of those instruments that I really like. And I play a lot of flute also. I love the bass flute. Love C flute, love the clarinet, bass clarinet. I mean, all the saxes. I mean, all of it. But I'd say tenor and soprano are probably the ones that I gravitate towards the most.
This last year for you, obviously a very busy one, right? Let's talk some albums, some ear up records. I'll just give you the floor and highlighting a lot of stuff where people can go. Obviously, Jeff Coffin on Instagram and some of the other platforms. But it's been a busy last year for you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's been a lot of projects. I had a pretty major release come out last July called Only the Horizon.
It's great, by the
way. It has 42, thank you. It has 42 musicians on it.
Wow.
And not all at once, but I chose everybody, particularly for the tunes that I wanted them on. So I have people like Keb Mo and Bela Fleck, Victor Wooten, Nate Smith, Bill Evans, Carter Beauford, Stefan Lassard, Buddy Strong, Rashawn Ross, a bunch of local musicians here, Rod Magaha and Ray Mason on trombone, and
yes, that's
just a huge cast of characters. Keith Carlock on drums from Steely Dan, who lives here also. Daru Jones on drums on a bunch of stuff. Some New Orleans musicians. It's just kind of it's a big group of folks, a big group of people that I really love and respect musically. And I've got a group called Yelly Ensemble, which is an African percussion ensemble through an organization that I helped co-found called Africa Nashville, which is africanashville.com. And so they're on every track all the way through it. There's African percussion on everything. And that's one of the backbones of the entire record.
So do you remember, because I obviously cover sports a lot too. And, there's always, when you interview a young player, hey, what was your welcome to the NFL moment, or your welcome to whatever moment? And maybe it's a big hit, or it's a huge touchdown, or it's a big 3-point shot to win the game. But as a musician, I almost think of like your welcome to the world as a national player, musician, your brand, people who know who you are. Is it when you walk on that stage for the first time and you see that crowd, the 15, 20, 30,000 crowd, way back. Is that when it is? Is it another moment? What was it like for you when you said, whoa, okay, here we go?
I think for most of us, it's gradual. It's not like it happens overnight. When I got the gig with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, um, it wasn't like suddenly from one night to the next, I was suddenly a much better musician. I'd been working at this for years and years. And so I think it's gradual. And then, by luck of the draw, by circumstance, by fate, whatever you want to call it, sometimes things happen. And so I've been very fortunate. I've also worked my butt off. And I think part of it is being ready for the opportunity when it comes along. Getting a gig is pretty easy. Keeping a gig is challenging. It's musicians are the music world is full of characters, and I've been around a lot of them my entire career, and but I also have witnessed people being their own worst enemies, not calling people back, or being difficult on the road, or not being prepared, not being helpful. And there's a lot of factors that go into it in keeping the gig. And it's really not always about how good you are as a musician. Because here's the thing, it's like, if you, using sports is a great example. If you want to be a great athlete, if you want to play professional sports, being a great athlete is a given, right?
Yeah.
And it's all the other things that you bring to the table also. And so as a musician, if you want to be a professional musician, being able to play your butt off is a given. That's not your calling card, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So again, getting the first gig is not really a problem. Continuing, like getting called back, what do you do to get called back? And there's a lot of factors to that. And so, I've tried to, consider those throughout my career, and, trying to lift the bandstand, if you will, trying to be an asset rather than an ass.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I sure do. That's a great explanation for it, as Jeff Coffin is here on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Stumbling Monkey Brewing Company. Check them out at jeffcoffin.com/links. Give them a follow on Instagram and all the social platforms as well. Rock and Roll Hall of Famer 2024. How can I not mention that? I was so thrilled to see you guys go in. My favorite band of all time. I've been listening to DMB since the early 90s. Congratulations to all of you guys. What do you think, since you joined DMB, I guess is the only question I have for you with that group is, what do you think you've learned from them, and what do you think they've learned from you since you took over for Leroy?
What have I learned from them? Well, I've learned a lot from them. My role in that group is different than it was with the Flecktones, as being part of a two-piece horn section that's kind of a unit, within the ensemble. And so understanding my role within the ensemble is part of it. Understanding the music, getting really inside the music is another part of it. It takes a while. I felt like it took me about 5 years to fully grasp everything. I don't want to say everything about the gig, but most things about the gig. There's about 200, maybe 250 tunes in the repertoire now, and it continues to grow, of course. So understanding those things, understanding the simplicity as well as the complexity of these parts, the asymmetrical forms that the tunes have, really understanding how to play and emote as a horn section, getting used to playing with different musicians. It takes some time, even though we're playing a lot and they've all been friends for a long time. I felt like personally, my comfort level was between 3 and 5 years of thinking, okay, I feel like things are really solid, that there's not really many curveballs that I'm going to be thrown that are going to stump me at this point, you know. And it's been 17 years now, which is hard to believe.
Wow. Yeah. I remember I was working out in the morning and I saw it come across the news headline that Leroy had passed, and I couldn't believe it. And was a sad day. I started crying. I saw his last show actually at Nissan with my buddy Mike, and then found out that you were coming in the band. And I remember calling Mike, and we were super pumped. And you're such a great musician. Just a couple more quick ones for you. I'm curious. You obviously do a lot of work with young musicians, you know, and you're an educator. You do a lot of stuff at Vanderbilt, and I wanted to kind of find out from you. You know, for my listeners, a lot of people who know me for a long time. Played the trombone back in the day, tried to learn a little guitar, but Jeff, nothing close to you guys, of course. But I love music. My mom was a music teacher. I brought her to a Dave Matthews Band show a long time ago. And before we talked, I obviously lost her a couple years ago out of nowhere. And she was into all of it. She taught in this very room for years as well. And her message was a certain way as a teacher. What's your message to the youngsters about music, the value, the impact? You know, what are you trying to get across as you're spending time with the next generation, so to speak, Jeff?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I've been teaching at Vanderbilt University here in Nashville for 10 years. And I continue to do workshops and clinics around the country. I've done well over 325 clinics. I've got a number of books that I've written, also self-published, mainly for my students and for other people that are interested in the information. I talk a lot about fundamentals and the importance of fundamentals. And I use buildings as an example. I say, you know, if you go to New York and you look up, or Chicago, and you look up, what do you see? You see these incredible structures that go hundreds of feet into the air, you know, and when you think about someone like a Frank Gehry or other architects I've done the architecture tour in Chicago, which is amazing.
Yeah.
When you go down the river and all. And so the people that have built these structures, these testaments to architecture, and to math and design, they have a profound understanding of foundation, because without that foundation, without that base, it can't exist, right? So my thing with students is understand the fundamentals. I look at kind of their first at least couple years in college primarily as getting them to really understand the foundation of what they're trying to do. Everybody's impatient. I'm impatient still, you know, but they're 18, 19 years old, and they're impatient, and I get it. So part of it is for me to not slow them down, but get them to look at things in a way that they understand that they're in process, and to become comfortable with that process. But we talk a lot about life. You know, I think at the end of the day, I'm really, as an educator, I'm teaching about life using music as the metaphor. And so I feel like those are the important things. And again, at the end of the day, it's just music. It's not that it's not important, but all the other things surrounding it are what make us great musicians. The stories, the interactions, the relationships, the understanding of how to play a phrase or play a note, and hit somebody in the heart. You know, I always tell them, let the heart outweigh the head. We have to have this, but we also have to have this. And to me, the heart has to outweigh the head emotionally to be able to connect with people. We're trying to connect. We're trying to create a relationship through sound and vibration with people. And that's, you know, it's challenging sometimes, especially with instrumental music. You know, when you have lyrics, it's a little different. And with Dave Matthews, you know, years ago, Dave tapped into something that's just inexplicable. And there are other bands that have done that. But to have a band that's been together now for 34 years like we have, and that it keeps getting better, the reason it keeps getting better is that people are working on their fundamentals. You know, Dave is doing vocal warm-ups, has been for years, hasn't lost his voice in years since he started working with a vocal coach. You know, people are warming up, people are practicing. It's important, you know. I mean, these are the same things that I'm teaching all of my students. and getting them to think about when they improvise, what is their role? What are they playing? Is it appropriate for the style of music that you're playing? And so again, like critically thinking, critically listening, and really understanding the base fundamentals and what their role is in any given situation. And again, be an asset. Don't be the other one, because everyone wants to work with an asset. No one wants to work with the other one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And of course, those kids, trying to concentrate too on that big Vandy win over Alabama this past year, right? So
That's right. That's right.
that was a big one. Oh my goodness. How great was this? The 3-time Grammy winning saxophonist, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer 2024 saxophone player in the Dave Matthews Band, all of his awesome platforms as well. Go check out Ear Up Records, his albums, jeffcoffin.com, record label owner, the composer, the educator, of course. And you can go see the Dave Matthews Band this summer at davematthewsband.com and Live Nation. And it's Jeff Coffin here on the ML Sports Platter. Jeff, so much respect for you, and obviously watching your career. Huge fan, and hopefully I can come catch you guys at the AMP in Syracuse on May 27th. Thanks so much.
Right on. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.